and welcome to this webinar on how to create an online learning resource. My name is Renata Weller. I'm the Director of Veterinary Education for CVS Group. So who is this webinar for? This webinar is really for anyone who would like to create an online course or a bit of online learning from scratch, or who already has a face-to-face learning resource and they would like to turn this into an online resource. What will you get out of this course? At the end of this course, you will understand the opportunities and challenges associated with online learning. You will be aware of the different methods and channels of online learning, and you will be able to adopt a step-by-step approach to create an online course. This webinar is delivered in 4 parts, in 4 different videos: introduction, definition, design, and delivery of online learning. This is an interactive webinar. The white slides are there for you to read, listen, and think. The blue slides, I would quite like you to get a little bit active. So let's get started. And let's start with the why. Why are we interested in online learning? So let's stop right here. Let's stop the video right here for a few seconds. And I would like you to have a think and ideally also jot down some lines. Why are you interested in online learning? Online learning, what is it? So some of you may have come across and may already be working with online learning platforms with whole courses. So on the right, you see the CVS one, the Knowledge Hub. Others might be familiar with free online learning platforms like Coursera, where you can really find a course on about any topic for free. It's brilliant, really. But really, the truth is, online learning, it's everywhere. And let's call it mobile learning, because that's what's happening. You go onto the tube, everyone is on their phones, everyone is reading something, everyone is talking, listening, watching. So really, we use learning all the time, on the go. So let's be honest, over to you again. How often do you use any of these channels? Come on, how often do you Google something? How often do you go on Wikipedia to look something up? Or how often do you look up on YouTube something you want to know something about, like how to build a vegetable patch? And if you look at the figures, they are staggering. Around 5.5 billion searches are done on Google per day. That's 63,000 searches per second. Well, us as a single person teacher, we can't keep up with this. So traditionally, teachers were the fountain of all knowledge. We were there, we had it, and people needed to listen to us to learn something. However, with the unbelievable capacity of the internet, we need to change our role as teachers. The storage capacity of the internet is 1 million exabytes. I don't even know what an exabyte is. I can't even visualize that. But what I do understand that it's about 18 million times the information ever written in books. And that's not all there is to it. In addition to the incredible storage capacity, there's also the communication capacity. And another unbelievable number, 2 zettabytes. I actually had to Google what a zettabyte is, and this is growing constantly. So we need to change. The teacher in us needs to change. So we need to go away from thinking we are the expert who can just impart our wisdom and knowledge onto people. We need to go away from teaching objectives towards learning objectives. We need to see the student as center of learning. We need to go away from telling to listening. We need to accept questions and actually embrace questions as a tool. We need to not only allow discussion, we need to actively encourage discussion, and we need to put the emphasis on providing constructive feedback. And I really love that quote from Thomas Schill. It is helpful to remember what a student does is actually more important in determining what is learned than what the teacher does. So the student has to be center of learning, not the teacher. There's a whole theory that backs this up. Kolb's cycle of experiential learning that he actually formulated before all that digital revolution came about in 1984. He said, Any learner has to have a concrete experience. So doing something, actively having an experience. They then need to reflect on it, reviewing and reflecting on the experience. And that requires feedback. That's where the teacher comes in. They then need to conclude, they need to learn from this, and they need to design another experiment, another experience where they can then apply what they have reflected on. So this is a continuous cycle, and we as teachers need to contribute to that. If this is all too theoretical for you, then think about it this way. We need to change from the fountain of our knowledge to becoming the facilitator, the coach, like a football coach. They don't do the running up and down themselves. They work with the players. Where are the weaknesses? Where is scope for improvement? And what can we do to address that? So we need to be directing rather than telling, and we need to be there to provide feedback. And digital mobile learning is absolutely the tool for this. It fosters directed learning like nothing else. The fact alone that learners can individualize their learning, they can choose the time, they can choose the pace, they can choose the order of things, and they can, at least to a certain degree, pick which items they want to access and go through. The teachers can set tasks for individuals in multiple formats. That enhances engagement. It enhances inclusivity. You can do things like gamification. I mean, I don't know how many of you have contact to teenagers, but they certainly like to spend time online playing all sorts of games, Fortnite or Minecraft and so on. We can make use of that. And this all leads to deep learning. None of us just want the student to learn superficially or strategically to pass an exam. We want them to go away and actually have learned something for life. That's our job. This all brings challenges with it. This requires an attitude shift for teachers and learners. We already discussed the teacher needs to be willing to shift from this classical teacher role to facilitator. It also requires an attitude change of students, and the students struggle with that as well. It requires self-discipline. It requires to not being spoon-fed anymore by their teachers, but they need to self-lead. They need to take control of their own learning. It also requires computer aptitude and technical skills. And let's face it, usually, especially the younger learners, have probably less trouble there than us older teachers. It has its technical challenges, hardware, software, Wi-Fi speeds. And as always, and that's the same with face-to-face learning, time available to the learner and teacher. We need to accept digital learning as a form of learning that also needs to be timetabled. We need to give the learner time to access it, and we need to give the teacher time to create those learning resources and then provide feedback and monitor when it's ongoing. Now, online learning has often been criticized that there's a lack of social interaction. But that's not only a challenge for learning, that's a societal challenge. And let's face it, the social interaction, a lot of that, especially for the younger generation, is already happening online. And online learning is just one component of that. I do like to believe they still seek face to face interaction, maybe via Tinder, but maybe not. And they can still go and have parties, and they can still do team sports and so on. So iGen is here. If you take nothing else away from this talk, go and buy yourself iGen by Jean M. Twenge. It's a marvelous book, really science based, that explains the differences between the different generations. And if nothing else, it makes one more tolerant towards one's own children, really. So this brings me to the end of the first part. In the second part, we are going to start to look into the how. How are we going to create an online learning resource? And where do we start that? I'm going to introduce you to the DDDAR method, which is a step-by-step method that at the end, hopefully, will result in a valuable piece of online learning that you will have created. So for now, go and have a break, have a Kit Kat, have a cup of tea or coffee, or do a workout with Joe Wicks. See you later.